amazing learning tool to provide us the platform and opportunity to learn how to operate in low Earth orbit. We've learned how to assemble, we've learned how to do spacewalks, we've learned how to control the medical aspects of spaceflight, especially long-term spaceflight. We've learned a lot about just how to do things in space. We got Hubble in extremely good shape, we've got ISS in extremely good shape. Now we have other areas coming up to take over the LEO functions that the shuttle did, and what we're doing is we're sacrificing the shuttle to enable us to be able to take that next step. If we were going to retire the shuttle, this is the time to do it. And I think that we're going to just expand the breadth of things that we do as a nation and as an international partner.
And in just a moment, we'll go ahead and take some questions. I'm sure you probably have some on what it's like to live in space. But just let me just, again, speak on behalf of the entire crew. You know, this was the last time that we were up there on a shuttle. We were extraordinarily busy, as I said, due to the reduced crew. But the night before landing, we did have an opportunity. We slowed down. We finished everything that was on our timeline to just look out the window and reflect a little bit on what it meant to us. And from a personal standpoint, you know, I found it extraordinarily difficult to believe that this was the last night that a space shuttle was actually going to be on orbit. And a part of it made me sad, but a part of it made me extraordinarily proud to be part of the program. And wherever, however you feel about where the space program is headed, of course, we're going to take some time off, and we're going to use the money that we had been using to operate the space shuttle to develop a new system to take us back to low Earth orbit and to take us beyond low Earth orbit. There is no denying that the space shuttle in its 30-year history will be looked back as one of the true revolutionary spacecraft, and how lucky and fortunate we truly were to have had it. That this nation has the tremendous dedication to put forth the resources to building something like this, and then has the stick-to-itness and the devotion to stay with it for the 30-year period, and to look back and see what it's accomplished over its lifetime. Chandra, Galileo, Magellan, the Hubble Space Telescope, we are all extraordinarily proud to have played a small role in it, and you as taxpaying Americans should be extraordinarily proud of the support that you gave the shuttle program as we all look back in just basically wide-eyed wonder about what a fantastic vehicle it was. So with that, I'd like to conclude, and I would also like to, I'm sure some of you young men and women have a question or two about what it's like to live in space, and perhaps some of you older men and women have some questions about where you think we're headed from here. I know I do. We'll be happy to give you our personal insights and where we think we're headed and what we thought about the space shuttle, if you'll so kindly ask. And I'm not sure if there's any microphones for the crowd. Okay, here we go.
I just wanted to ask sort of for the kids, and I know a lot of kids, you talk to children that say, I want to be an astronaut. And so, you know, you probably maybe did that one time when you were a kid. And what I was saying is the kids sometimes, they don't understand the future, and they say, well, how can I be an astronaut? The shuttle's over. So if a kid was thinking like that, what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, the shuttle program is only part of what we're doing in space these days. I had the opportunity to live on the International Space Station for 4.5 months, and we're still flying people to the International Space Station. We're using the Russian Soyuz rockets right now. We have, I know, 16 or so people in training right now for the International Space Station missions where you get to live for 6 months. So believe it or not, we're short astronauts a little bit right now, and we need astronauts. And I would encourage any young person in this room or listening to our speech today to come join us at NASA, either in the role of an astronaut or as one of our scientists or engineers or designers or flight directors or flight controllers, because we're going to need you. We have some challenging years ahead. We're going to be starting a new program with a vehicle that will be going out of low Earth orbit, and there's certainly opportunity there. I think some of you young people have a chance to go to the moon or Mars or an asteroid or somewhere out of low Earth orbit, and I think that would be a very exciting destination indeed. So clearly there are options, there are jobs, there are opportunities at NASA, and we want you to come join us. Anybody else have any questions? If you wouldn't mind maybe coming up to the microphone when you have a question, and that way everyone will be able to hear it. Yes, sir.
How does Earth go around the sun?
How does the Earth go around the sun?
How does the Earth go around the sun? Would you like that? Rex?
Well, in the beginning.
Well, just the Earth goes around the sun because the Earth has a velocity. It goes around, and the gravitational pull of the sun is what keeps the Earth in its orbit. If the gravity of the sun didn't hold on to the Earth would go swinging out past the outside of the solar system. So it's the gravity of the sun that keeps the Earth orbiting around it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Rex.
I know there's been a lot of talk about returning to a capsule-based vehicle as opposed to a aircraft-type spacecraft. Do you think that's the future of manned spaceflight? Why or why not?
All right, I'll take a swing at that one. Yes, if you had to look at any one of the number of replacements that are out there for the space shuttle to get humans back and forth to low Earth orbit, a lot of them are capsule-based. The one that NASA has been working on for years is called the Orion, which is a capsule, and that will return to Earth, like you said, under a parachute, and it will land on the land using airbags to cushion its final landing. Now, there are also other systems out there. Some of our commercial partners who are all vying for this business to get astronauts back to low Earth orbit again. One of them is a company called Sierra Nevada, and they're building an aerodynamic vehicle that will return, not unlike the shuttle does right now, to land on a runway. Which direction we go in ultimately, I'm not sure. We're going to have to wait and let them demonstrate their capabilities to us, and ultimately we'll see which is best for the country. Now, the vehicle that will ultimately go beyond low Earth orbit will likely be the Orion capsule, and that will return to Earth in, as you said, under a parachute in a capsule type of reentry. Now, some would say that capsule is kind of taking a step backwards, back to the Apollo days. I would contend that a capsule is probably, when you're coming back from those interplanetary velocities, when you re-enter the atmosphere at something larger than we normally orbit the Earth at about 25 times the speed of sound, when you're returning back from an interplanetary destination, the Moon, an asteroid, Mars, you're going to be coming back a lot faster, Mach 28. And just that extra energy it's very difficult for the modern day materials to handle that. And it would be very difficult for an aerodynamic vehicle to fly back from a lunar or an asteroid destination and take all that energy out. So you're better off with an ablative heat shield, which is what you see on the bottom of these capsules. So a capsule is actually a safer way to come back, especially from a destination that's beyond low Earth orbit. So they each have their balances. Does anybody else want to add anything to that? No? Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure thing.
What's NASA going to do now?
What's NASA going to do now?
It's always the hard questions from the youngest individuals.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. We've got a couple things that we're working on right now. The first thing is we've got to get another way to get to low Earth orbit. In other words, back to the space station since we retired the shuttle. So we've got commercial companies. There's 4 commercial companies working on designs for vehicles that will take astronauts back and forth to the International Space Station. They expect to be ready. One or more of those companies expect to be ready to take astronauts to and from the space station in the 2015 timeframe. To go beyond low Earth orbit, in other words, to go outside Earth's orbit to the Moon, asteroid, Mars destinations, we're building what they call SLS, the Space Launch System. That was just announced a few weeks ago. And that's a large rocket, over 400 feet tall, so huge rocket. On top of that rocket would be the Orion MPCV, the Orion capsule. And there's a plan to have an unmanned mission as early as 2017, and then a manned mission a little bit beyond 2020. So probably right about the time you're ready to be an astronaut, you'll have a ride to maybe the Moon or an asteroid. So that's our plan. So we've got kind of 2 different things going on, working in parallel, and a lot of great things to come.
Yeah, and just to add to that, in the rover or the unmanned program, we have a launch the day after Thanksgiving of a new Mars rover. It's about the size of a VW. It's a very, very large rover, and we're going to send it to Mars. It's going to get there next August and start roaming around on Mars and giving us more information about what Mars is like. So that's going to be very exciting too. You remember the Spirit and the Opportunity rovers? They were tiny, maybe about this big, and this one's going to be the size of a small car. So we're going to learn a lot about Mars when it gets there next fall. So that's pretty exciting too.
And go ahead. Thank you very much. We'll take the next question, but I just wanted to make sure that, because I don't think we brought this up, in this interim period that we're waiting for the United States to come up with another vehicle to get us back to low Earth orbit, we're depending on our Russian partners. Of course, they've successfully flown the Soyuz spacecraft for decades now, and they are our primary way back and forth to the International Space Station. So when American astronauts are ready to go, like Dan Burbank will be the next one to launch to the space station. He's over in Russia right now, so he's preparing to go down to Kazakhstan and launch on November 14th is the current launch date. So we're depending on them until we're ready, probably 5-6 years from now. Yes, ma'am.
After being on the space station for 6 months or so, how does one readjust to coming back to Earth?
That was something I was sort of curious to find out about as well. And one thing that you have to do if you stay in space for any long period of time, actually any time after 2 weeks, is you have to exercise 2 hours a day. It's very, very important. We have exercise equipment up there, a treadmill. You kind of bungee yourself to the treadmill and it holds you down and you run, and that's good exercise. You get that pounding on your heels and your hips and your lower legs and thighs. And then we have a bicycle ergometer. You can bungee yourself down to that and do cardio and get your heart working really well. But most importantly, we have a resistive exercise device, and it simulates weightlifting. You work against a vacuum, some vacuum cylinders, and you do things like squats and deadlifts and some of these exercises to really activate the legs muscles and your back muscles and things like that. So if you exercise for 2 hours a day the way you're supposed to, you can come back strong. For example, I was able to walk. I was able to stand up. I was able to work against gravity. It wasn't pinning me to the floor like I was a pancake, which is what it's trying to do to all of you right now, and you don't realize it. Gravity is just overwhelming force that just you are working against all the time, and that was interesting to feel that. But my balance was off. You have to be careful when you get back from space for a long period of time, because you approach a corner and a quarter, and you go to turn the corner, and maybe you're not good at judging when to start turning, and you hit the wall. So people are following you around for a few days to make sure that you're okay. You don't want to move your head around like this really quickly. If I wanted to look that way, I moved my whole upper body because my inner ear, my vestibular system was all messed up, and that took about a week. And then after about 2 weeks, I actually had enough energy to operate in gravity. For about 2 weeks, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I just wanted to lay down. I was so tired because getting used to doing all of this motion in gravity wore me out. But our rehab program is 6 weeks long, and after that, I felt fine. Really, after about 3 weeks, I was in pretty good shape. But you have to exercise 2 hours a day.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a question?
Hi. Maybe typical is a hard word to use about living in space, but what does a typical day look like at living in the space station?
On space station?
Yeah.
Well, space station, it's between a shuttle mission and a station mission, it's a difference between a sprint and a marathon. For example, we were very busy during the space shuttle mission because we had a lot to do and we were only going to be there for a short period of time, and so our timeline was very, very packed. On space station, it's a little bit more leisurely because you're going to be there next week and the week after that. So you get up in the morning, you have a planning conference with the ground, and you talk about what's going to happen that day. They have tasks scheduled for you throughout the day, whether it's science experiments or public appearances via video or maintenance. You have to fix something that broke. You've got exercise scheduled. So you talk about that. Then you start working on your schedule, what they've scheduled for you. You break for lunch. Somewhere in there you exercise. At the end of the day, when you're done with all your tasks, you have another planning conference where you go over what happened during the day. If there's been any problems, or there's any adjustments to tomorrow's schedule, you talk about it. Then you have time to relax. And this is what you don't have during a shuttle mission because you're busy all the time. But you have dinner, and then you've got a few hours, just like when you come home from work or school, you do your homework, and then you have time to relax. You can go look out the window, you can watch a movie, you can call your family. When we have the right antenna signals, you can talk to your family, you read your email, you look out the window some more, take some pictures, and this is sort of a typical day.
I'm not sure.
Did you have a dream of being an astronaut when you were actually a kid?